Alright, so now we got a project coming up. A friend of mine needs a nightstand or bedside table built. They want to incorporate a couple of pictures on the top, so we're going to build a pretty basic nightstand, and then on the very top I'm going to add an edge to where a piece of glass can be inlaid, but also leave it to where down the road, if something happens to that piece of glass, it can be easily removed. You can replace that piece of glass, and then you'll still have the same effect, and the photos that they want encased on the top of this nightstand will still be there and intact for them for many more years. So, for me, the biggest downfall of dimensional lumber, when you're trying to make furniture out of it, is this rounded edge. To make it look more like it was taken out of a hardwood cut, we're going to go ahead and shave just the rounded over parts of this board, and we're going to do that to all those. So now we have the edges cleaned up. I've just taken each side off the board. Traditional 2x4 is 3.5 inches, taking a 1/4 inch off of each side. Also, with the side braces that aren't the actual legs for the piece, I've taken that 3 inches and ripped it into two 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch blocks. With the size of this piece, that's going to give us more than enough stability, plus is going to give us symmetry in the look, because the side that is exposed from the front of the cabinet, you're seeing a 1.5 inch width by 1.5 inch width. Stability on the side, but the aesthetic from the front view is going to look like it's all the same dimension. So once we get that jointed up, that'll be more than sufficient to support the weight that this structure is going to need to hold. Alright, so now I've taken all the pieces that I cut out earlier, and I've drilled pocket holes for assembly. Pocket holes in each of the short braces, and just pocket holes screwed them into place. I haven't glued it up yet because I want to get the layout of where I want to set each dado and each rabbet to accept the panel pieces that'll make up the sides and the back. So I've just taken each piece and marked where that piece belongs in its orientation of the build. So like on the sides, both sides, I want a panel set inside of here, and in order to do that I'm going to dado. So I've written dado on each corresponding piece that will get a dado on it. On the front side, we want to leave it exposed, and here to cover this will be the drawer face. Down here will be left open so you can put stuff in your nightstand right there. On the back, I don't want to run a dado because I have a cross brace here for the drawer back. Your drawer slide will ride somewhere around right here, and we need support and stability so that this thing doesn't rack. So we've got this cross member here in its place, so rather than run a dado back on the side for the panel, what I'm going to do is cut a rabbet. So in order to track where I want my dado set, I just set my combination square to 3/4 inch, and I'll follow the edge of the square with a pencil and lay our line for our dado. So now I've got the router table set up with a couple of feather boards. That for me just kind of helps eliminate the human error. Got my little shop built router table fence here, and I've made it so where these feather boards are able to connect and push into the piece in both directions. So that'll keep it from swaying in the cut, and we're going to make sure we put that cut right where we want it. We're going to take these pieces apart one by one with the 4 pieces that need a dado on each side. And then I'm going to make sure when I push them through the router table that the orientation always remains the same. So this is the edge that needs the cut. So I'm going to make sure when I run them all that the markings that are marked out are always facing out toward me. Very important part of this is, like I said, the markings on each individual component. Those markings allow me to know which way I should place the piece on the router table when I run that channel. So that if this dado isn't exactly centered, then every piece that should be facing out is going to face out toward me on the router table when I make that cut. These dados are stopped dados, so you can see where I had mocked up the frame earlier. I put their screw holes there, so I kind of have an idea that this piece is going to go there and my dado is going to stop in this place and then transition into this piece across. So I don't need to run the dado the whole length of the piece. I have a reference mark of where I can stop at the top and the bottom. Same thing with the rabbets on the back panel. This back panel is not going to be a through rabbet, so I'm not going to rabbet the entire piece because I don't want to cover the whole thing all the way to the feet. So that's our first pass. And we'll take a couple more and get to the actual depth that we want. Okay, so now for the stop dados, we're going to have to remove our top feather board and take the same depth of pass, but we're going to have to start a little further down. So we'll make a plunge cut and then go forward. So you can see that on this piece where we took our plunge cut, we come to just where those supports are going to join. And we stop so that we don't have that dado cut running down our leg piece at the very bottom. But where these two pieces intersect, it'll be able to hold the panel in. Okay, so now you can see how those cuts line up. Once the assembly will be completed, that groove is consistent all the way around, and the panel will slide into this groove in that dado going around the frame. That's a very shallow rabbet cut here. Now I've also chosen the width, or the height in this case, the way it's sitting, of the bit is the depth into the material that I want to cut. So we've stopped pretty close to our reference mark here on the ends, and we'll go ahead and clean that little bit of waste material out with a chisel, but that's just thick enough for our material and our back panel to set in and be flush on the back. So it's been really helpful with this project to go ahead and use the pocket hole joints to mock it up so that I can put the frame pieces in place and then get the correct sides for both my side panels and my back panel. And it also gave me the ability to take everything apart and be able to route the pieces that I needed to for both my dados and my rabbet in the back. So now that we've got the panels situated, what we're going to do is go ahead and put them into the channels where they belong start to glue everything up, and let it dry. So now, after the glue up, what we have is two independent side panels. I placed the clamps on them just to give them a little extra support, even though the screws are more than likely holding all the pressure they need to in order for the glue to dry. And so while we got these guys drying, I know I'm going to have to do a glue up on the top, and that's going to be a little time consuming. So I'm going to use a 1x6. We're going to plane it down real nice, just to clean up the board a little bit, and then I'm going to take that same concept with the 2x4s. I'm going to take that rounded over edge off. It'll make this glue up much easier. We'll cut them to the length we need, and then glue up another panel for our solid wood top. Okay, so I've cut my boards for my top to my cabinet, rough length, and now we're going to go through the same procedure we did with the 2x4s and knock this rounded over edge off these 1x6s so that we get a nice square, and that way we'll be able to joint these really easily. So something you always want to be mindful of when you're selecting the orientation of where these boards are going to lie is the knots and imperfections in the wood. I always cut these panels a little oversized, do the glue up, and then trim them, because you're never going to get a perfect square when you do this. I've gone ahead and laid the shaping triangle on the pieces that I want to joint. This gives me their orientation in the pattern. Now, while I also do not have a big fancy long bed joiner, I do have a little old joiner my grandfather gave me, so we use what we got. Now, we've removed quite a bit of that separation in the cuts, and we'll be able to join up a nice solid panel. Alright, so now we're going to get our glue set for our glue up and tighten this panel down, and we'll let her dry. About 8 hours pass, let this glue set really well on our tabletop, so now we got a nice sturdy solid wood top. Can set that aside. Also, the glue up is dried on our side panels. They look nice, they're square. So now put the front and back supports in place and go ahead and get that glue up done so it can set and dry as well. Alright, so now that the side panels are set, glued, and dried, we can go ahead and put together the cross braces to tie the whole cabinet together. Everything into a place where we feel good about it. This thing's really starting to shape up, and you can start to see the final form of what will be the finished product. The drawer will be inside that cavity there. Down at the bottom you'll have a little area to put stuff on your nightstand. So now we're just going to glue the back on into our rabbet that we had cut into our frame pieces. Just going to set glue along the rabbet and then put some brad nails in to hold it while the glue dries. So because I had to trim the back of this brace to fit level with the back panel installed, I did not install it prior to installing the back panel. So now that the back panel's in, we can go ahead and glue this up and screw it into place, and that will give us support for our drawer slide. So now while we're waiting on our back panel to dry and that cross brace we just installed, we can go ahead and start construction of the drawer. I'm going to use 1/2-inch plywood to build the drawer, which should make for a pretty sturdy setup. Okay, so now it's time for our drawer assembly. I've mocked up all the pieces, cut them to length and width, run the dado in them, and set the panel inside. To ensure everything fits, got a good dry fit on everything, and now to assemble the drawer, we're just going to use a glued butt joint, and then I'm going to put brad nails in there to hold it, which should be more than enough strength to keep this drawer together.